Hey, Jamie, you're muted.
Poor Stacy.
Oh, okay. The browser failed to play the video clip. That's where we are. Here we are. We're live, I guess. The intro thing didn't work. But here's this thing, because I haven't done it in a while. Jazz Cabbage. It's been a couple weeks. I haven't done it. A bunch of kind of shit's going on. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah,
that was my fault. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. And so it's weird to be back a little bit. We got some stuff to talk about, though, because it has been a little bit. We're in the middle of summer. I didn't get a chance to get much into the recognition of Haas Plord a couple weeks ago. That guy has done a lot in a lot of different ways. Try to get information to people, to help out groups and organizations, to be supportive. To work with people on T-shirts and other things. He had the Cannabis thing going. He was definitely a force for a while, and he was at it for a long time. And he made a difference, and wanted to make sure that we give him some recognition a little bit later, just because I didn't get a chance to before. And I know that many people here are familiar with him and some of the stuff that he's done.
To add on to that, Jamie, speaking of Haas, we are going to be working on a project to get a copy of the pot book to all 110 representatives, and then of course all the senators. So eventually we're going to be. I've already communicated with the publisher and the writer of the book, so I'm just waiting on some responses too as well. So just throwing that out there, we're going to try to do that in Haas's honor. Because he's always wanted to do that. He just always like, we got to get this book up to every one of them, every single time. So.
I remember getting a message from him a while ago, discussing wanting to pull that off. I was in support of it. I wasn't sure what exactly he was looking for at the moment, but good.
Get it done. Yep. It's just a means of organizing to get it done.
Well, the more information, the better. Anton's joined us too in the meantime, and I didn't even mention everybody who's here so far too. But Anton Harper hasn't been around for a little bit. Took a little break.
Been off the grid. Grid. Sometimes you got to do that.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah, good for you.
Jealous.
But I'm back to reality. So here we are. Glad to be back.
And Trisha and Tanya and Stacy, which represents a combination of lots of shit going on in its own way. Weedster's one of them.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Weedster's legislative stuff, labor issues, many things. I know there's more, but we'll be able to kind of get caught up on what's going on a little bit. One of the things I definitely want to do. I'm outside, so I've taken the risk on the noise too, I guess. Yeah. Usually pretty quiet here. Looks like it's not stopping. Wanted to get into Hill Harper. I think we'll even be joined by some other people too to jump in on that conversation a little bit. So that might be ongoing. But hey.
Whoa.
Hey, look who's checking in.
What's up, Rick?
Hey,
Typical
Rick.
co-host. Hey man, how you doing?
Trying to survive.
Yep. Appreciate poking in and seeing what's happening, man. Obviously, we are getting caught up. We haven't really done this in a couple of weeks. And so we're looking forward to kind of getting caught up on what's going on.
Where's my baby Anna? Where's baby?
Hold on, hold on.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad that can be accommodated.
Yep, we got her in there watching Rachel, learning sign language. She loves it. Starting to hung out here a couple days.
Nice.
Star of the show.
Yep.
I can't imagine
There
that.
it is.
Considering how old that- Hi, Anna. Hi, baby.
Is that right?
Hi, Anna.
A lot of history here. You know what? Incidentally, it was about 2 years ago, right around now, that we were all in the parking lot outside of the municipal offices or the township offices in Ypsilanti in support of Judith Pontius, and a lot of us were there, including Anna and Rick,
I
connecting
just shared
famously.
that memory on Facebook.
A lot of history here.
Hey, thanks everybody for all your support. There's too many people for me to name individually, but I just got to call out Jamie and Ryan Basor for being my biggest supporters and for always having my back.
Right on.
Jamie, please don't do that. Put it back on the. Thank you.
Sorry, man.
I'm not proud. The way I look right now, it's a tough fight, people. It's not easy. Your support has helped a lot. I get cards, I get boxes of great things, including a cool little baby Yoda made out of greenstone. People have been very generous. I'm grateful to all my supporters. I wish I had more energy to stay online more. It's tough.
Yeah. It's really awesome to see you, man. I'm glad that you're able just to make a check-in with us.
Well, it's pretty horrifying to see me, the shade of what used to be Rick Thompson. So thanks for being nice when you said that.
I am exceptionally happy that you are able to be here with us right now, man. There's no question about that.
At this time, we're just waiting for test results. And it's clear that it's much better to have me back home waiting for test results than waiting for test results in a hospital bed. So I'm going to be here for weeks. And I'm hopeful that we're going to get a course of treatment that addresses my specific type of cancer, and that we can put that into effect and that it actually works. There are some really smart motherfuckers working on me. Really, really smart people. And I put my trust in a lot of them. And it really makes a big difference. You know, it does.
A lot of prayers and positive vibes.
I felt every one of them too. I would scroll through Facebook. I didn't want to respond to one, but then not another, and have someone think that I didn't care for them. So I've been really careful about not trying to like people's posts or respond to their individual comments. But I want you all to know I read just about everything that was written, and I love everybody that helped. All the likes, all the comments, all the reposts of pictures from back when I was a little more me than I am right now. So, and since nothing's changed inside me, all they did was get a biopsy. I'm still at the same scenario that I was when I went in the hospital two weeks ago. So
Yeah, some people have asked for further update, and really the same thing that was kind of conveyed last time, is just still in motion. It's just the role of where it is in that process right now.
Yep, and everything takes time. So in order for them to fully evaluate the test results takes weeks, because pathology always takes weeks. And we have Lynch's syndrome to consider too. So we're trying to determine if the tumor is a Lynch's syndrome type tumor. Those respond very well to immunotherapy as opposed to chemotherapy. And that's what we're hoping for. But I just wanted to come online just for a moment
Right on.
to say how much I appreciate everybody and thank you for all that you do and all that you've done and everything you've said. And it all helps. It all helps me progress.
So everybody keep the prayers and the positive vibes coming.
But I'm gonna have to go now.
Thank
And
you
that's
very
all.
much for checking.
We love you, Rick.
We
Love you
Amen.
guys too.
Love you, Rick.
Love you, Rick.
Thanks for all the support, people.
We'll be in touch soon, man. Thank you very much for checking in with us.
It's good to see you, Rick.
It's good to be seen, I guess. Thank you.
Bye, brother.
Bye.
Thanks, man.
That was unexpected. So it's cool to hear from him. It took a lot of
Good.
strength, I suppose, to even just do that.
I was so happy to see him and hear his voice. I mean, and then
I obviously wasn't sure if he was going to be able to do that, but I was sincere when I said I was very happy to see him do that. So a lot of people have
I
been
was
asking, and
same.
Well, Rick is a life force. He always has been.
Yeah.
He's helped pretty much all. I don't think there's not a person on this panel that
Everybody on the panel.
that he hasn't impacted significantly and has given opportunities and a voice. And I mean, that's what
everybody
really
who's in the cannabis community has been affected by his work, whether they are aware of it or not.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question. Nice to
Yeah,
get
you
that. Yeah, it's a slow roll. Things, one thing at a time, kind of a thing. And as we kind of said, he's in the process of kind of one of the last updates that were there. That's just where it stays right now as it plays out. So as he gets more information, as more things line up, we'll know more. But man, he's awesome. And I'm glad you were able to have Anna there to show him.
I know they have a connection, and
Yeah,
she kept on trying to look for him because she heard his voice. She was sitting over here smiling.
good. We were able to kind of recount the history of Judith Pontius a little bit too. A lot of us were out in Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor a couple of times in support. In Ann Arbor when she was in court, and
Yes.
in Ypsi when they were discussing the issue at the township board meeting. And now one of those people, the most rational person on that board, is now a state house representative.
Thank goodness.
Yes.
It's awesome. What a coincidence. Huh?
And Leah has joined us.
Hey,
And,
fam.
she
Good
knows
to see
something.
everyone.
She knows something about exactly what I was just talking about, I think. Legislative
Yeah,
liaison
maybe.
to that person. And also we
Yeah.
were starting to bring up Hill Harper, and that's also great timing too, because you were there on stage. I meant to get there early enough to get on stage with everybody, but I was there. I was up front. I was still supportive, and it was a great time. There was a lot of energy. A lot of great things were said. He's getting a lot of very important support. I mean, it's a smart campaign for a rough challenge against such an establishment opponent. But I'm excited for his campaign, kind of like I was excited for Dana's campaign, a while
Yeah.
ago. And Marshall and Mike were there. Al Williams was there. Miko Williams was there. It was,
Michael Thompson as well. Michael Thompson was there today too.
Oh, I didn't catch that, but that's quite awesome.
Yeah, I saw Michael. I went and chatted with him for a bit. He and some of his family were there.
Yeah, and I know that Rick really appreciates Hill Harper also and supports him, and we've talked about it on previous shows before. And
I just think, I mean, for us, Jamie, when is the last time a U.S. Senate candidate announcement had 4 Cannabis Caucus board members at it? Oh, Princess! Oh, Junie! And that's
well, I don't think it
kittens.
either Stabenows or Peters was that the case. So.
And I will also say
First one.
he did the outreach to a lot of us. He and his team really looped us in. It wasn't necessarily us hunting him down. I mean, I keep tripping over him in all the same criminal justice rooms that me and Rep. Wilson are in. And that just, to me, like, I'm not going to see a lot of the other candidates talking about this race ever in criminal justice, clemency, cannabis. I know Lady Latricia, I think you were there. I know he went up to Big Clouds with Rick Antis's whole group. Yeah. And you're not seeing that in any of the other candidates. And the reality is, for Michigan, we're incredibly behind in criminal justice stuff, and we are still got draconian cannabis scenarios going on, and we're supposed to lead the nation. And to have a U.S. senator who's in our spaces talking about those things, learning from us, taking it to the national level is so important for our community, like so important. Oh, and now we've lost a lamp. These kittens, I swear. I have 3 7-month-old kittens, and they're adorable terrors.
It's okay that they break stuff because it makes you feel good.
You're like, but you're
nice
cute.
Balance.
And there goes my coffee, guys.
Kittens fix everything.
They do make your heart really happy. They really do.
Balance it out. Yeah.
No, but I will say, Jamie, when I was at the event today, I ran into organizers and community members from so many different aspects of what I've done. There were environmental people there. There were a bunch of young Democrats there with a whole host of issues. And like from my county, I saw some of our local electeds, like a lot of our people on the grounds. He's building a very diverse coalition. And I'm not sure if anyone else is going to match that level of diversity. I will just caveat that to saying it's great to see them there, but it is going to be a heavy lift. Like, I'm not going to pretend like winning the U.S. Senate seat's an easy shoe, and especially with a hand-picked establishment, moderate, very well, lots of money behind her candidate. Juniper.
She famously, or just like, I mean, well reportedly, I'm not sure if that's the right word, famous, but it's well reported that she's got about 3 million and growing right now. So it is a very formidable war chest that she has to move into this campaign with.
Yeah,
and
so
she's a moderate,
the coalition's
right?
got to engage. It's going to be a field game. It's going to be an ads game. Like, you're going to have to come at it from all angles. But for us, I can almost guarantee that current Congresswoman Slotkin is not going to show up to our stuff, is not going to listen to us or care about us. And I will definitely take Hill Harper with the compassion and empathy that he was already doing before being a candidate. I will take that because our space needs a lot of sympathy and education and compassion, and he's willing to sit there and learn it. And he's already got a lot of the base for what we focus on.
So that I agree with that. And I think, Slotkin is not she won a really tough race in the old gerrymandered, 8th congressional district against a Republican incumbent and that type of stuff, which was pretty impressive. She wasn't really leaning heavy on our issue, as pointed out, though, which was kind of a bummer, at that. She never has really embraced it. And perhaps moderate still fits based on other issues and things like that. But, she's establishment. She's going to listen to the head of the party and carry out the orders and not seriously consider important issues and decide if they need to have policy changes, and then get the energy behind them and try to get it done through the processes as much as possible. And Hill Harper is somebody who's going to do that. He's already demonstrated that he's going to go investigate issues, learn about them, consider them, and determine if things need to be done. And that's what we need. We need more of those types of people in there than people that are just taking party directives and maintaining power. And maybe not that all those issues, are bad and that all the decisions on those issues are bad, but I don't like that process at all. I like more of a balance of powers and reacting to things that are important that the people are interested in seeing taken care of.
Junie. There's a basement window directly above my desk, so the game is to jump in it and jump out of it and jump in it and jump out of it. I'm really excited. I think that you're going to see it's going to be a crazy summer. There are some local elections next year that are going to be really contested in the primary. And then we've got a very contested U.S. Senate race with Hill and Alyssa. And there are 3 other people who've thrown their name into the U.S. Senate race. But it'll all depend on. Are you drinking the coffee now? It'll all depend on who actually gets the signatures to get onto the ballot. It's expected that Hill and Alyssa will receive the signatures. The other 3 candidates, it's up to be seen if they will end up actually making it onto the ballot.
But man, I'm encouraged also by, and I was in like a couple of meetings, as it's been said, Hill Harper and people working with him, Rick Michaels, etc., have done a good job of talking to a lot of people and learning about a lot of issues. And doing a lot of legwork, and I was able to get in on some of the kind of just some of those discovery kind of conversations. They're investigating what's going on out there, and some of the people interested in him and already committed to the direction he wants to go in are really formidable. And like key pieces to any campaign, and man, it's just so yes, it's a tough challenge, but certainly there's substance there, and it's happened before. It reminds me of the Dana race a little bit again.
Yeah. Well, and I will say there's a lot of the same people that helped Dana Nessel do what she did involved in Hill Harper. So I will say these are people that are used to being looked at as kind of the underdog and having to prove, no, we're here and we're the people's voices. So I'm excited about that because like, I don't think there's a naivety that like this is a walk in the park by any means. And the team that he seems to be building are experienced in the specific type of like races he's looking at. And I know for us specifically, like getting him in the Senate, a lot of our federal legislation, I've been talking with Marshall and Mike a lot lately about really needing to push Senator Peters. And so like we need a guaranteed voice at the Senate level that isn't just going to vote yes, but I believe Hill would be one that's up there in caucus, advocating, explaining, educating it. And that's, I think, just very, very crucial for us, for someone that we can trust to actually be a voice, not just a vote, but like an advocate for us there too. And Hill has definitely come across to me as committed to that. And I will say committed to continuing education, because as we all know, there's always more to learn in this world.
I think if he can get behind the good reasoning for there to be policy change, then he will push for it, and he'll be confident about it because it'll be based upon what's best for most, and not like what the current position is of everybody else or where the priorities are or that type of stuff. And we stay so like restricted from that type of approach, and I like the idea of getting more people in that are willing to kind of like shake it up a little bit, for good reasons, such as I believe he would, such as I believe Rep. Wilson, who you work with directly, does. And
we're
we
trying
talked about
hard.
that when he was on here. Yeah. Those are the kind of people we like to have decision-making capacity,
Yeah, it's cliche, and you guys hear me say it all the time, but elections do matter. Like elections matter. And like we are seeing, I would say, both sides of that. Like we've elected some people that are content with status quo, and pushing them to actually get stuff is a challenge. And then we've elected people that went up there to do the work because they've listened to their community for years and they are pushing the envelope. And so like it's very clear when you elected someone that's willing to put it all on the line to do what's right for Michigan, and when you elected someone that's climbing a ladder. So elections really, really do matter, is what I would tell you from my everyday arguments that I get in.
This next election cycle will be very interesting. I mean, even at the national level, it'll be, I don't know. I think we need more moderates. Like we need more moderation. We need more homeostasis in government at this point in time. And it's give us a little bit of some breathing room. And
Well, there's a balance. I mean, there's some
there's a
things that
balance.
fundamentally need to get back to where it was before it all got, bizarrely
Exactly.
shaken up. But
Yeah.
there are things that have been sitting there too that, just because of the course of things, or as I said, priorities or misunderstanding of their importance, or being in tune with what the constituents are wanting. Oftentimes it takes the politicians, much longer to catch up with what's going on out there. And just,
But I'd say, Anton, you're alluding to what I see a lot too still, which is that like divisiveness, right? Of like, oh, it's a D side, it's an R side. And it can be the best policy, but they'll go, oh, I don't like that person. We can't like work with them. Or like, we're not going to push this bill through because it's the wrong party identifier. And this is on both sides. I'm not necessarily saying one way or the other on who here is doing it, but it's on both sides. Like it's the same attitude. I will give the disclaimer that I feel I have some certain insight, right? The freshman class of legislatures seem a lot more focused on actually like policy that they promised they were going to do than this necessary, like, I'm on this team, you're on that team. I've seen a lot more of the freshmen seem to be willing to work across the aisle, even not necessarily get bills introduced, but to build a relationship across the aisle. And that might look like grabbing a coffee with someone from the other side. And I've seen a lot of returning, or as you call them sometimes, veteran electeds. They are not interested. They're not going to build that relationship. And I would be lying if I said I like most people across the aisle's policies. But if I'm so cold that I can't have a conversation, you get back to that point of what you were saying, Anton, is like you're not getting anything passed that either is revolutionary or is just efficient and functional. And I am thankful to see more of the freshmen coming in with a little less of this me versus them mentality. Now, you're not going to see them on a bunch of policy together because they don't agree, but you're at least seeing them have a conversation. And returning veteran electeds, they just don't seem to be willing to do that. And it is really frustrating because, like, I do think that if a Republican or a Democrat, who I may disagree with on everything else, but they want to do cannabis, for instance, is one of these issues, they will come work with me, but they might be horrible on every other issue. And some reps aren't even willing to find that common ground. And I mean, you guys know me. I might, if you bring it up, tell you exactly how I feel about your other stances, but I'm going to work with you to get my legislation passed when I agree that it's common ground. I wish there were more of them approaching it that way up there.
That's why you're awesome.
Thanks, guys. I'm just trying to make it work.
It's also true that the Republican Party in Michigan is not doing too well. It's not real healthy right now. The leadership is based upon more of the extreme end of things, the stuff that kind of just didn't work out the last few years, really, that it's, resulting in the repercussions that we see unfold all the time now. And they've run out of money, from what I understand, because donors don't like that instability and those kind of extreme positions, and so they're not getting funding. It would seem like a good time for the Republicans to want to balance it out a little bit. I guess that's a good point too. Based on what you said before, Anton, to kind of moderate things a little bit.
Well, at the end of the day, when you have this us versus them, you just have nothing getting done. You're doing no work for the people that you're supposed to be representing, because there's no way in hell you can ever get votes to pay. And, instead of all this wild left, wild right, whatever it is, like, have conversations and sit down. Okay, what can we actually pass? Like, what good can we actually do? And if party leadership isn't doing that, they're just playing the us versus them, or fucking flying Trump in and waving the fucking Trump flag or whatever. Like, that ain't going to work, folks. Just like a lot of the shit on the left ain't going to fucking work, right? So you better think of what's going to actually transpire and how we can work together and put together policy that's actually going to impact the lives of the people you're supposed to be representing. They collect the paychecks. They have no problem doing that. They'll always be paid. And they know, I mean, at this point, it's just, you're right, the us versus them. And at the end of the day, nothing gets done because nobody can get the votes. And that's what we've created as a government that doesn't function because of this divisive bullshit.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Recently, Leah sat down with Graham Miller and Amy Carter and I, and she really was a huge advocate for us.
Hey, Graham Miller's a Republican House representative. Go ahead,
Yep,
sorry.
Yep. thank you. I apologize about that. But I mean, he was so kind to take our cause to the Republican caucus to see if we can find somebody to do a bipartisan bill. We'll see. But thank you, Leah. That was a really awesome experience with you, and I'm hoping that maybe there might be some truth in that whole situation. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, and that's why I say, like, our issue is an issue that we should be able to work across the aisle. And yeah, when you bring in some mentality of like, oh, but they have these stances, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I love every opinion that of people that Rep Filler might bring back to us, but also like,
Exactly.
I can tell you my Democrats are hesitant on Jaden's law that we were specifically meeting on, and I'm going to work with who wants to get it done because we've got 200 some pediatric patients that need attention and love. So I'm pretty thankful that Rep Filler is willing to like push the conversation for us. But I will tell you at the same time, like there are other bills in our office that he absolutely is opposed to. So like we literally are living this mentality out that we talk about in our office of like we've got common ground with him on cannabis and on liquor control issues, and we are very happy to find some inroads, I think, to communicating with some other Republicans that might be more hesitant to come talk.
Hey, you know what? We might take it. Don't mean to interrupt here for a second. Actually, I do, but I'm sorry to interrupt. But Rick Michaels, I think, has jumped on here for a second, and we were just discussing, Hill Harper and stuff. So I'd like to get back to that now with this opportunity to see how things are going with the announcements and stuff like that today. Rick, can you hear us?
How everybody doing?
Hey, doing well, man.
Oh,
yeah. Can you hear us, man? It's kind of a bad connection, but I just heard you though.
hello.
Hey, man. There you are. There
He's
you are.
on the road doing the work.
They're doing the announcement in 3 different cities today, and so I know they're on their way to Grand Rapids area right now for the 3rd announcement.
Yeah, I guess we should have said that. Like, so not only did we go to the Detroit one, but Hill was then heading to Pontiac and then over to Grand Rapids this evening to do 3 separate announcements. Which, like, people underestimate how big Michigan really is. Having done a statewide race with AG Nussel, like, yeah, making sure that people can access like your events and aren't always just Detroit was great. Oh, hey, Rick.
Hey, yeah. Apparently, my signal is kind of weak. I'm on the road and it's raining. I'm on my way out to Grand Rapids for our next launch event. So
it's been exciting, though.
Thanks,
Jamie,
for coming, and thank you, Leah, also for coming.
Yeah,
absolutely.
How's the response been? How's the turnout at the Pontiac?
I've got
it's not muted and we can't hear him, unfortunately.
I think it's his signal. If he's on that route to GR, he's probably just losing it.
He's trying.
There's a lot of profound stuff coming out of that. Right now. We'll have to tap into it, hopefully, at the end of it. So. But, I mean, the reality is there was a lot of energy there, a lot of really good people, I think, important people who recognize what Hill Harper brings. There he is. Hey, Rick, you back?
Nope.
I think there was a really clear sense of community too, Jamie. Like, I've not been to a rally kickoff announcement that starts off with like a high school marching band, the Ipsy Youth Choir sung the Star Spangled Banner. You had pastors, rabbis, sheriffs, Femmes for Dems. Chair Lori Goldman was there speaking. Like, it's a very diverse coalition, but also
union leaders.
Yeah, we had the postal worker union leaders were speaking. So like you had this energy of like, I don't know, just like a really cool community energy. And I will say that you don't usually have that much genuine fun And that was kind of cool. Like, it was fun to have music and have engagement and treat it as like something to actually be excited about. It didn't feel like I'm attending another party event. And by party, I mean the party event.
So I was actually down there too. I went down and I made it like I just kind of hung out by myself, watched his speech, walked around.
In Detroit or Pontiac?
In Detroit. In
Okay.
Detroit.
Sorry, I missed you.
Started talking. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, sorry,
But
I missed you.
I gotta like say the same thing. Agree with you 100%, Leah. Like, it was the sense of community down there was awesome. I lived down in the Capitol Park area for about 8 months last year and into this year. And like, I'm used to being in Campus Martius and, you know, the different types of events and stuff that happen there. And this by far there was just a lot of excitement that wasn't just like smoke being blown up anybody's ass. Everybody was excited because there was actual potential for change. And it didn't just sound like every other thing that you hear about let's make community better. It was like, no, here's a plan. Here's how we can speak and come together and do this in the right way. Like, it didn't seem like it was, you know, a typical political rally. There was a lot of fire behind it. So that was really good to see in Detroit, for sure.
That's cool. I wish I would have to see it.
Sticker.
Maybe this next
in my car now.
maybe this next election cycle will surprise us. I think the people are fed up with all the divisive
I think
bullshit.
that there's a lot of fed upness, right? Like, there's a lot of good issues that just make sense that we don't get addressed, both federally in the Lansing. And I think that for next year, and I'm going to be very real, this is not me speaking for any of my people I represent or orgs, disclaimer. I don't think President Biden's exciting enough to get the turnout that we need to, you know, it's just the fact. And that's not necessarily saying he's bad. It's just not that exciting energy factor, right? And I think Harper ending up on our general ballot equates excitement, turnout factor, youth vote, progressives, environmentalists, criminal justice, cannabis. Those people need a reason to turn out. Let's just be honest about that. Dems have a tendency to say, oh, Trump can't possibly win again. He's got charges on him. We're going to stay home. Or you have Dems who don't love President Biden, right? So they're just like, we can't lose. We'll stay home, right? And I think Hill gives those people a reason to say, oh, I should come out for this election. I need to be there. I need to make sure we're sending Hill because look at all these things he talked about and he's doing. And like Stacey said, he's saying things that the people I knock doors are saying, but the usual pundits don't point blank say it in the easy to understand exactly how I heard it from the single mama on the door last week, right? And I think that is crucial for Michigan. And I'm pretty convinced without Hill on the general, I don't know if you're going to have enough excitement to really turn people out, especially young folk. Just frankly, I don't.
We don't need these. He is an elderly person who needs to go on retirement vacation somewhere else. And the Democrats, you know, it is incumbent upon the Democrats to be responsible enough to give us a candidate worth voting for, because if they don't, the Republicans are going to take it. That's my opinion. And I think, you know, Trump isn't, look, Biden, Trump, shit can both of those people. Give us some new lifeblood. Give us something to be excited about. Give us somebody who's not 100 years old. You know, give us somebody who has a face that looks like the rest of us, all the working folks out there, the veterans, the whatever community you're from, the person that can stand in each of those communities and talk intelligently and talk about different policies, even if they don't agree with them, at least be intelligent enough to give a reason why you don't agree with that policy, and at least have the empathy to try and see it from that side of things and try and understand what those folks are trying to convey and why they want those policy decisions to be made. And we don't have that. So, you know, if the Republicans, I mean, it would be political suicide to run Trump, right? I think anybody other than the true Trumpers or whatever would agree with that. From a political analysis standpoint, that'd be the stupidest decision that they could make. It would just be, might as well give it to the Democrats. The Democrats, though, they give us Biden again. That's a tough one. If you run DeSantis against Biden, DeSantis will take it in a heartbeat, right?
DeSantis is what I'm actually much more terrified of. If you're in, like, I don't even want to say his name, honestly, Anton, but the policy coming out of Florida is terrifying. And the idea of him having access to the national policy in any way, shape, or form directly terrifies me. I mean, progressives there's the running joke of like, Florida's the no-fly zone, right? Yeah, we don't go to Florida anymore. My partner and I have decided we will not give a single tourist dollar to the state of Florida. And a lot of that is policy that gets right back to dividing and creating me versus them. And that is so scary because we've tried to repair that type of damage nationally. And the idea of DeSantis ending up there, it's like a triple fueled fire right back to where we were. And that's terrifying. And just to be very honest, as someone who looks at policy, it's terrifying. Terrifying,
of course. If Biden really cared about this country, he would step down. He would be a one-term president.
I agree with
And
that.
the issue is that, and I talk to a lot of people who I would consider moderate, but they ain't voting for Biden. They would never vote for Trump. But if DeSantis was there, yes, we would. That would be the lesser of two evils, if you will. So, I mean, if the Democrats are serious about change, they need to be serious about dumping Biden and getting us somebody who can legitimately make change and work with the other side, because we still have the stupid two-party system. I hate it. Like it's the biggest crock of shit that, democracy, when we talk about democracy, it's like this poison pill that I don't know if our forefathers even thought about it. I mean, I'm sure they did, but
one of George Washington's farewell address warnings to us was not to use a two-party system. And it's comical because when you talk to a lot of people, they're like, oh, listen to the forefathers. Are the forefathers? And I'm like, so Washington told us not to have a two-party system and to not enter into international alliances. How have those things worked out for us? Yeah. We just didn't listen to that part of our forefathers, apparently. They like to pick and choose, right? But like literally we were warned that's going to end up with this division. And I know a lot of people that organize in the Democratic Party, and a lot of us will tell people like, we don't really care about the big D, but this is the party that aligns closest with us that I can do work through. And I know a lot of us in this space have probably felt that way with cannabis, right? And like that is kind of crappy because like I wish that I wasn't forced into this or that. And to Miss Dingle's credit, Congresswoman Dingle, she once told me she hates all the labels because it does just allow for you versus me versus you versus me. And it's hard to create that big tent. And you see the fracturing like crazy in our parties, both the Republican and the Democratic. There are factions, there are cliques, there are internal wars, and all of that shows me that two parties don't work. It just doesn't work.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't have been. We need, like I consider myself more independent, I would say, on different things. I mean, just in general, more of an independent, because I would never get down and kiss the ring of any political party. If I'm elected by the people, I am there to represent my community. I don't give a shit what some Democratic or Republican leader has to say. It's what do my constituents want? And if I can't vote my conscience on that issue, then the system is already done. It's already
come preach in Lansing with me.
Oh, it's deflated. We've already lost. We've lost. And these folks, I'm telling you, it's just intelligent people, right? These are people that come from diverse backgrounds, Republican, Democrat, wherever, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, all these things that as Americans we see as valuable to human intelligence or valuable to what would make somebody a good leader. And they're the worst leaders, because they get in and then they start making the money and then they start making deals, and then a deal is made. Now they sold their soul. Now they can't vote their conscience because the devil owns them. And that's like, if I were to ever run for office, I'd run like I was never going to get reelected. I'm going to go in there, shake shit up and pop smoke. That's the person we need to get into office.
What's up? Get gangster with it and shit.
Yep.
We have sometimes had candidates like that. And then upon And then upon getting into office, the machine was a little bit too tough for them to crack. So their
I'm not
intentions.
Gonna lie, one or two bodies doing exactly what Anton is talking about, they can get, oh God, need to choose words carefully, repercussions from powers that be. Now, if you have like 20 of them, you can't target 20 districts, but you can target 2 districts. You can punish that rep. You can punish that district. It doesn't affect your outcome votes is really what it comes down to. And a lot of reps and senators and electeds, they are kind of in a corner. Like you said, Anton, they want to vote their conscience, but they also don't want to screw themselves or screw their district. And not even necessarily because they want to climb the ladder, but like they're the first one that might have spoken what their district is saying, right? And I am trying to convince a lot of people who want to see it happen faster that I need you to, back to elections, I need you to send me more bodies that are willing to say, you know what, screw it. I might be a one-term elected, but I'm gonna shake shit up and I'm gonna make Michigan better.
They wouldn't know what to fucking do with me. I'll tell you.
And
that,
that's the thing. I need more of those bodies, because if I can get 10, 15, 20 out of our 54 majority or 56 majority, now they can't ignore me, right? And I will tell you, there are quite a few reps that have started pushing back and saying, like, you've got to address what my people sent me to do. And I will also say powers that be don't really know what to do with those types of people, because that hasn't happened in Michigan in a really long time. They're kind of like, wait, what? You didn't just jump, say how high when I said jump? You had a question? You wanted to discuss this? And like, you can see people be like, huh? What? What do you mean? And I'm like, ooh, we're a whole new breed of people that you're not used to. And so send me more of those, because then I can really stir shit up.
Here's the thing too, because the first thing they're going to go after is committee spots, right? They're going to make sure that person they're going to try and deflate their voice. So you need a person whose voice is so powerful that a committee spot doesn't mean anything to them at the end of the day, that has that voice that people are going to stop and listen and go, oh shit, that makes sense. Right. Yeah. That is what creates power. And we don't have that. We do not have that nowadays. We have people. I look at just a lot of these politicians and you just shake my head, because, you do take the oath, you're representing the people. And, as a veteran, somebody who's taken the oath several times, many times in many different capacities. And I look at that, and to just dishonor the people at that level is disgusting, because that's one of the highest honors, to be you're not a leader. That's why I say you are a representative, and that is a higher calling than a leader, in my opinion, I guess. And we just don't see those folks.
Well, and with your life experience, Anton, I can't imagine how frustrating that is to you, because a big portion of why you did what you did was to protect the people's voice, right? And I don't know. I just realized how much deeper that can be for you with your life experience. And I apologize for a lot of our shitty people up there, because that is totally not. You're right. That's
Get me in a room with them. I'll debate anybody, anytime, anywhere. I love that shit. Let's just drop a hat. Let's do it. And I'll argue with anybody. And
but when that happens, Anton, somebody has to care about what the truth is. And not all the time. And one of the frustrating things about trying to, work with an issue in Lansing, or maybe things might be changing a little bit there, but, it hasn't totally, changed yet. In other places, people don't do it for what the right reasons are, so it makes it really frustrating.
I mean, I'm still being told, does descheduling cannabis really matter by people? And I'm like, would you like to go meet my friend who almost got threatened with a life sentence? Yeah, it freaking matters. Like, it matters.
For a little context, there was a lawsuit. It was Michael Camoran. It was Matt Abel and Cannabis Council, Thomas Levine and company. The plaintiffs were like John Sinclair and Josie Scoggin and some other people, purely based on medical law before MRTMA was in place, and it was about the contradiction of cannabis remaining on the state-controlled substances list when we were allowing people just to grow it in their home and under certain conditions pass it around to each other or something, just under the medical thing, which contradicts the.
Well, I mean, it's crazy because under my lease, right, I'm not allowed to have controlled substances, but under MRTMA, like, cannabis is a right that I have to grow, right? And I'm not telling you, I'm growing in my apartment. I'm not. I don't have time, space, money to pay that electric bill. But it's weird because it, like you said, it conflicts, right? Like, are you considering cannabis a controlled substance? Because, like, I live in Ypsilanti, right? Like, we got 8 dispensaries in a 3-mile wide city. Like, and it's weird because, like, if you had a landlord who really wanted to screw with you, they could kick you out because of cannabis, having a joint in your house, because technically it's a controlled substance. Yeah. And I don't know. It's like I said, there are people who kind of just don't get why this still matters, or who don't. There's a lot of legislators who want to legislate without listening and learning, and that to me is infuriating.
So in that lawsuit, though, they it got kicked for technical reasons. It was like because the plaintiffs didn't have standing, meaning they weren't like hurt specifically by this. So, they weren't able to do it. And Attorney General wanted to fight it like that, she said, because she wanted to see it done legislatively. So, I mean, that's one thing hopefully gets discussed and or will be in future discussions for sure. And hopefully she'll agree to what she had said last session, that she still does that. But the thing is to remember, first of all, then the MRTMA came in, which makes the case even stronger. You know, the contradictions to that remaining on Schedule 1 even stronger. But the real problem is, because it hasn't been taken care of, there are now people who definitely have standing by the definition that wasn't there for the first case. And that sucks. That could have been avoided.
Well,
Yeah,
Jamie,
absolutely.
when you talk about, one thing to bring up, when you say truth, like truth in fact is no longer a thing in America. There's no longer truth in fact. It is perspective, and who is able to force their perspective on you in a way to make you believe. And facts are no longer facts.
Yeah, there still is truth and fact.
There is, but
there still is an objective truth out there, but that's not what is considered when people make decisions.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Latrish. What'd you say?
I said there's a lot of facts out there that are only based on specific numbers and specific places with specific types of people, and it's just agenda driven. It drives me crazy how many of our representatives actually use that data as the correct data for whatever.
I just lost my whole signal.
That was interesting.
There are some storms rolling through.
Yeah, I thought by the first forecast I looked at that I'd be able to be outside for the whole show, but it started to kind of rain and I had to readjust.
All Michigan weather.
Yeah.
I've been in Arizona the past month, and it was 108 degrees and sunny every single day. I miss it.
Probably dry.
It was very dry, not a cloud.
It's very dry heat in Arizona. Yeah.
I loved it.
I loved being down there too. Made me want to get an RV, guys, and when I retire, do that cross-country road trip, If I retire. Do you ever retire from activism? No.
There's always something to get upset about. And
exactly.
I'll tell you what.
My dream, guys, is I'm going to be that 80-year-old who gets to hold the sign that says, "I can't believe I'm still protesting this shit." That's what I want to do.
I'll be in Canada.
Well, Arizona had some of the worst flower I ever smoked in my life. It was horrible. The dispensaries down there, it's crazy because you go in, like a lot of the dispensaries in Michigan, mom and pop places, you go in, they're not Apple stored out. You know what I mean? They don't look like you walked into an Apple store and ordering on big iPads and things like that. And Arizona seems to, that's where they've invested their money, is into it's like a magic show. You go in there, they pay exorbitant prices, and the product was just garbage. Everything I smoked, I couldn't believe it. So I don't know. There's still a maturing market, but they got a lot of work to do down there. It's interesting to come back to Michigan and see how advanced actually we are in the cannabis space. And there's so much work to do. And we're one of the more advanced states, really, period, in the country. I mean, as far as from a regulatory perspective, from all perspectives. And then you look at states like Arizona or Florida, their medical law, they just keep going backwards. And, when we talk about cannabis, it is overwhelmingly bipartisan. The people want this shit legal, fucking period. They want it removed from the controlled substance list. They want it legal. Republican, Democrat, Martian, whoever they are, they want it legalized. And
there's a fundamental rights issue with it, and it's never been demonstrated to be dangerous.
Period.
No matter all the.
Look, my mission, I got veterans are still worried about the VA and whatever. We started the Veteran Access Program, and we got folks with all types of conditions now. They're getting free weed. And you know what? I'll do that until the day I die, because these folks go to the VA and they get their poison pills, and you either do the poison pills or you can smoke a joint. I got a buddy who came into town who he's in a wheelchair. Big Mike, Redemption did a video with him. One of my best friends in the world. And, he came into town because he's from a state that isn't legal, and was able to get some good medicine, and, called me one day and was almost crying, basically saying, I have no pain in my legs. I can eat again. I'm sleeping. You know, like we were able to improve that individual's quality of life with a plant. With a plant, like what person can sit there and debate that fact with me, or a cancer patient, or a child who is progressing in their life because of cannabis oil, or whatever is going on? Like, how, like, factually speaking, numbers, even by the numbers, percentage wise, how overwhelmingly positive views on cannabis have been, even in like demographics you wouldn't, religious communities and whatnot. I have never, as a veteran, I have spoken to the most conservative Bible Belt individual, and when I explain, look, this helps me and it helps me live my life in a better way, I don't get an argument out of them. They just say, good, you should be doing what you're doing. So why is that not extrapolating to at a national level? And it makes no sense to me. So it's leadership is what it is. It's these old draconian zombies that have gotten to the top of our government and continue to stonewall the policy. They make it so the bill can't be put on the floor. They make it so the bill can't get through committee. Rid the government of these people, force them into retirement, give them a huge payout, go away, go on vacation, go to the retirement home or whatever.
If Adam were here, he
But
would
they
say
won't.
that we need another generation, of people.
And it's
dying
not
off.
bashing on, elderly people or anything like that. It's a perspective. It's an outdated perspective that
Exactly.
is no longer relevant to the American people. And allowing that perspective to continue to influence policy decisions that are not representative of the people is not the United States of America that I defended. I mean, or that we all represent here, right?
Preach.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
But how do we fix it? I don't know.
No, I agree.
That, Leah, that's your ball.
I'm working on it. But I agree
Well,
with you,
it's
Anton.
just
And when I
saying.
was a kid, I would say that. So I grew up in a conservative Christian family, a lot of Southern influence. And when I was a kid, one of the biggest issues if you ever talk about the devil's lettuce, you guys have heard me call it that, is the legality of it. A lot of my friends' my parentals, they were deathly terrified if you were to get caught smoking. And I'm not encouraging high schoolers to smoke, but it was really because of that legality, right? And like in Michigan, in my more conservative network that I surprisingly still have, I've seen a huge change because it's legal here now. It's medical here now. And recently I actually saw some of the church elders advise someone that, if that's going to give you back mobility, do it. I never thought I would hear that. This is the same church elders that I thought were going to lock me in a room when they knew that I had smoked. And now they're looking at someone saying, if that's going to give you back mobility, if that's going to give you quality of life, then it's your medicine and you should use it. That blows my mind that we're there.
Doctor recently did the same thing. She knew of a patient. She said, "Does it help you sleep?" I was like, "Yeah." She said, "Keep smoking, double up, whatever you got to do." So it's kind of incredible at the same time because I was not expecting that, but we have a much better relationship because of it now. And sometimes that's really important for doctors to kind of ease up on it, so that way patients can be honest with them about their health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And that's so huge. Being able to have that relationship with your doctor, especially if we're not going to remove the bias and the conditioning overnight, right? That is a generational thing, as we've discussed. But what we can do is introduce cannabis in places that are comfortable for people to talk about it at, and where it needs to be comfortable and where it's vitally comfortable is it has to be with your doctor. Because if you're not able to talk about this with your doctor, if your dad or your grandpa isn't able to do that and they're not able to build that trust, that the legality does have something to do with it, right? I know so many people over the age of 55 that as soon as it was legal, their wife or their spouse or one of their kids, they all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, yeah, it's okay because they can get it at the store now. It's legal now. It's okay, then if it's legal, then you need to be able to have a relationship to talk about how to incorporate it into your life. Because as we're learning right now, and I know Trish and Tanya can attest to this because we're all taking a class currently. But our endocannabinoid system is pretty jacked up. Everybody's endocannabinoid system is pretty jacked up. So by having small amounts of cannabis introduced into your body, being able to do that have that discussion with your doctor, I mean, you know, we can really bring quality of life to a much better place and really help facilitate conversations, because everything being all messed up isn't good for up here either. So maybe we'll think straighter with a little bit more properly dosed THC in our body.
As a community, as a country, we are sick. You know what I mean? Like we are systemically sick. We are physically sick. We are mentally sick. We are sick. And it boggles my mind that when you equate sickness, the first thing people think, you know, big pharma rolling in the door, right? And one of the boogeymen that inhibit a lot of this is the FDA. And this is, I was actually going to roll into this topic too, Jamie, was, you know, one of the things I've done recently, you know, with the $40 million with the veteran cannabis research that we had in Michigan, I was invited to actually speak before the FDA, and had a meeting with the FDA about 3 weeks ago, with the MAPS Foundation, because the MAPS they're basically they're on what's called clinical hold. They can't continue with the research because the FDA didn't agree with essentially smoking. They had a big issue with smoking cannabis, right? And you know, the presentation was, look, first of all, this is reality. I gave a statement to them, you know, basically gave my history of where I came from, which I'm sure shocked the shit out of them, right? You wouldn't think a guy like me would have been, you know, just boggled their mind. But it was interesting to see in the FDA meeting, there were about 5 or 6 of them. And there was one lady who spoke like against, we don't have the studies of the damage that it can do to the lungs, and we're concerned about lung damage, blah, 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 blah. And then you had another person, FDA as well, who was like, no, I understand. It was like advocating. You had this yin and yang type of thing. It was weird. But at the end of the day, my kind of spiel to them was, look, we must allow self-titration, you know, by trying to do research saying like take 2 puffs of a joint 3 times a day like you would a pill does not apply to reality. And you're doing the people a disservice, because that is not how it is used. So we need real world data of how this is affecting our population. You must allow self-titration. You must have self-titration. I self-titrate. Every other human being in the world self-titrates. Nobody, including especially the veterans, are going to listen to somebody who says take 2 puffs 3 times a day of this really weak ass weed. And FDA,
you're telling the FDA, you know, how plant medicine is looked at.
Yes.
You know, while trying to have an FDA context around it, you know.
An FDA, and the context being is the genie's out of the bottle, like way out of the bottle, and has been out of the bottle for a long time. And you have all these veterans killing themselves every single day, right? We must stop this. And even if you don't disagree, it doesn't matter what your perspective on it is. Even if it's a doctor, I would even say doctor, it doesn't matter what your professional opinion is, because this is going on. This is transpiring with millions of Americans every single day. So by not allowing the research to be conducted in a scientific setting that's reasonable within FDA protocol, but kind of poo-poo a particular way of using it because of antiquated, or my favorite is we don't have enough data. Well, the reason we don't have data is because you won't let us get the data. So
you know,
thank you. Oh my God, so many times.
Right. Titration though is something that is used with other pharmaceutical.
And actually the
FDA,
they've approved self-titration in the past in cannabis studies. And
they were, whatever that you know, NDI, the national drug thing that
NIDA.
A lot of the research and stuff like that. And it's not like see what's going on with this. It's like see what's bad about this. You know, are the directives on this research and stuff. They've tried for decades to look at the damage on lungs from cannabis, and you know, I think if there were some, wouldn't we all know about it on this panel? You know,
and if there
aren't any, and it's disingenuous. It's been researched for decades in this country. If it hurts lungs or not. Sorry.
The other angle is, okay, so this is like a 6-week study. Okay, 6-week study. People will be smoking for 6 weeks. Like, come on, people, Americans. The cigarette companies, tobacco has murdered how many American citizens over the years, right? Like 6 weeks. Let's just allow this for 6 weeks. It's being done in an academically sound situation with like medical doctors and like real people who know what they're doing. by stifling that or hindering that in any way, first of all, they're screwing over the people of Michigan because we're paying for it. We took 40 mil and doled it out to these folks, and none of them can get their research started because the FDA keeps stonewalling it, right? And the law that we passed mandates that you deal with the FDA and that it be FDA approved. So, you know, one of the things we had talked about, I know Robin Schneider and I before, was like coming out with a state resolution and basically advising the FDA that it is the will of the people of Michigan that this study commence and that this money be spent in a way that's within the confines of the law that we passed, and, you know, stop setting up roadblocks, allow this to continue, leave it alone, back off. That is the president's mandate too, right? Research should be continued. You know, this is what, so, and I have, you know, his views on cannabis are antiquated and draconian anyways, but irregardless, this must continue. So I don't know if it's going to take something, if a resolution would help, but they were actually receptive. At the end of the day, I'd gotten word that they kind of agreed with me that self-titration may be a way of going forward. So it's still, you know, to be found out if they got let off a clinical hold or not. But Wayne State, U of M's on clinical hold. Last I heard, Wayne State was on, I think they were on clinical hold, but like the FDA, nothing's getting done because in all these institutions, it takes money to set this up, right? So in the meantime, money's being spent and we're getting nothing, no return for our dollars because we've produced no data. So and this has been why I've been so involved.
It is this weird like bureaucracy there that can't figure out how to get past its own issues that aren't really necessary.
You're running into like a state versus federal issue, and this happens a lot. Is like state issues and federal issues. And I will tell you that in Lansing, reps who are hesitant to do cannabis stuff, they constantly ask me for the data and the research, and I respond with, "Get me descheduling, and I'll get you what you want." Like, because like it's infuriating that they want to legislate precautions, and I say, "Where's your data?" And they say, "Oh, well, this must be a danger." And I say, "We have no data proving either way." And then they say, "Oh, well, let's get some data." And I'm like, "Yeah, so deschedule it." Like, I want to give you what you want.
Leah, what are they asking you like support for or a study for or something?
Or Paez, conversations with Paez. Rep Paez's bill, where she wants to warn people about the dangers and the possible interactions and overdoses and all the fun things that cannabis does.
So you've asked them for why you think that we should do this, and there's not really a good answer. But are you saying that some people are asking you too for some?
Yeah, some reps do ask us about, like, you know, so like when I was talking to Rep Filler, teaching him about like suppositories and RSO, like he really had, I would say, a kind of bucketed mentality of like joints, vapes, maybe concentrates. And I was explaining like suppositories to him. That was a fun conversation. He had no idea that that was an option. And so I think some of it comes down to, they ask me about like the products, and then they ask me about dosage. They want to know like how to safely dose out the product. And that's probably the most common, I would say, like research clinical, like guarded question I get, because there's a lot of conversation up there right now about the labeling. And I know like Latricia and I have talked a little bit about this. They want like perfect dosaging, and they want to understand how long it affects you and how long it lasts. And then some of this conversation goes into the like road enforcement conversation, right? And I look at these people and I'm like, I would love to give you all these answers and all this data, but y'all been hating on me so long that I can't get anyone into those types of clinical studies to get.
We already know the answer to some of the stuff that you're talking about. It's been researched.
Yeah, but they want me to hand them a report, Jamie. Like they did this.
Our own state did a report about whether or not you can tell by content of cannabis in somebody's system if they are too particularly affected to drive or not, and you can't.
But they don't like that answer. They want to know what is the number that tells me.
They have to come up with. What I'm trying to say is, most of the time when they're asking for a study, really the burden of proof is on those making some type of an assertion at some point in the conversation, and they're trying to twist it around. We're saying we don't know of any issues with this, you know, and they're saying, oh yeah, there is this issue. At that point, okay, what is the issue? Why is it a real issue? Instead, we oftentimes get asked for these studies. Well, you sure can do that?
That's ridiculous.
And then we don't need to waste our time with that. We need to like have them support their sensational, ignorant claims.
Well, you know, at that point, I would follow those folks who are saying that shit, follow them to the bar after work where they all get together and probably get liquored up, and then ask them, what's the perfect dosage of alcohol? Can you give it 1 shot, 2 shots, 3 beers, 4 beers? Because I guarantee you there's some American sitting around right now drowning in a bottle of booze somewhere. So what's the dosage? Where's the research on that? Right. but they would just look at you.
I like
as
that.
your-
That's a good response. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I think, Jamie, you are correct in the fact that it's a deflecting mechanism too, because there is some of that mentality of like, it must be dangerous, so there must be something, and you respond with no, like we do not have that. None of the data has ever showed that, and it's almost like they just reject that statement sometimes because I think they want to continue to create the fear, right? And that's extends into a lot of other policy and conversations that happen in bureaucratic politics and government anyways. There's a sense of create something to be scary so we can rampage against it, or we can continue to make money off of it, because we're not talking about the mass incarceration aspect here of cannabis, right? So like, Mike and Marshall aren't here, but like they are constantly in contact with cannabis prisoners still. We are literally we pay for them to still be there, right? But also if they're in a private prison, there's money involved for them getting that, right? And so like it's just a continuing conversation of like why I think they still want some fear mongering, and depends on who has their hands in their pocket, right? But
Which way are they going to make the money? Yeah, that's.
What'd you say, Jamie? I'm sorry.
I just said I was just confirming what you said. Which way are they going to make the money?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All about money. At the end of the day, it comes down to they were promised some little cush gig after they get out of office, or some lobbyist is sticking money in their pocket that we don't know about, or there's something in it for them. That's the shame of the whole thing, is we need to make it so there could never be anything in it. You want to, it's and it's impossible to do. I get that, but incentive is the devil in government and politics. And incentive to create money is even more dangerous.
And then,
you're
of course,
talking about
people
that
don't
money out
understand
of
cannabis.
politics.
Yeah.
It's on
Sad.
the list of progressive things to tackle. And I know voters, not politicians, in Michigan this coming cycle are considering 3 different ballot initiatives. They haven't,
Really?
last I checked, labeled which one they're going with, but they're all dealing with an aspect of money in politics, because we can sit here and talk about the issues, but we really can't ignore that until that's gone. You're always going to have people owned and bought and sold by somebody else.
For perspective, real quick, though, that particular organization is one of the very, very, very few that were able to be a group of people that organize and passionate about an issue and create a statewide
and voters, not
ballot
politicians. They're incredibly bipartisan. They are incredibly bipartisan, and they've done some great work. They did the gerrymandering. We got some of the voting initiatives passed through them. And this year's conversation is all about money out of politics. 3 different possible approaches.
They did get some like infusions of some donations at some point once they were very established and had got a lot of signatures. But there's very, very few groups, very few times people just get together, know that change needs to be had, and have enough organization and knowledge and ability to go get signatures without $1 million to get started, and hiring a bunch of people and stuff like that. They were able, very, very rare times, do that. I just wanted to point that out as you were talking about them.
Yeah, no, and I would definitely say to watch whatever ballot voters, not politicians, go with, because irregardless, we're taking a chunk of the money away is the plan. And they have a good track record of, like Jamie said, having the conversations and getting the stuff done without being the air quote big money interest people, right? So I'm hopeful. We'll see what the ballot language looks like. I will tell you that probably every elected is going to freak out, and I want them to. But any of the 3 will help chip away, but it's not an overall solution, of course.
So I know that Jaden's Laws is out there. Is that formally introduced with?
Oh no,
co-signers?
Jaden's Law is so in Rep. Wilson's office, we have the draft, or we have the bill number. Blue back is the word, but it's basically like a draft of the bill in our office. And part of what Latricia and Amy and Jaden were meeting with Rep. Filler about is we are really trying to find a bipartisan sponsor, so that we can have Rep. Wilson as the main lead sponsor on one, and there are 2 bills in the package, and we really want to have a Republican as the sponsor of the other bill. Part of that is we need
education code as well as the act.
Yes, exactly. One bill changes the education code. One bill changes the Marijuana Act that we passed. The problem is you need 3/4 to change the marijuana ballot that was passed. And that's why Rep and I have really, really, really been trying to build that across the aisle relationship because we can't do this without having that across the aisle relationship. I will tell you, we want to introduce by the end of the year, and if push comes to shove, I do have a DIM sponsor that will pick up that second bill, but we're not willing to give up on the hope of bipartisan yet. And also, as I warned the ladies and Jaden, this legislature is not going to give you 3/4 anyway, but having the across the aisle support would allow me to push some strong committee hearings, because at this point, we've not even gotten Jaden's law into a committee hearing. And we're pretty confident with some of our friendships with the reg reform as well as the education committee that we would definitely be able to get a committee hearing. But Jaden's law does not have a new House bill number at this time. It's what I call the in research and building support phase. And then Rep himself, we are also pulling a descheduling language, but do not have the draft yet. But Rep Wilson has also decided to take that one on in our office. So we will be championing both Jaden's law and descheduling. There's a couple other smaller things we might be looking at. One space that I'm excited to share with you guys is actually in the healthcare space. We had a group of OB-GYN doctors from Michigan Medicine come up to us and ask us to introduce a bill to remove cannabis from the mandatory CPS reporting. They went through this whole explanation about how traumatizing it is. And I just sat here like, Amy Carter, in my brain the whole time, right? Because
we went through that. We went through that when Anna was born. She was in the NICU having seizures, and I had to have a conversation with the CPS worker because of her mother using cannabis for nausea during pregnancy. They had to come out to our house. This girl had so much stuff on her plate, and then CPS, it doesn't matter how gentle or kind they were, they attacked her. They targeted her, said, your baby has THC in her system. We need to go check out, make sure you have a bed and hot water. And I'm like, go check it out. She has literally 5 beds, cribs, bassinets, pack and plays. It was very frustrating. And of course, I expressed my frustration during that time. We were all cleared and everything, but it's the principle of it. Just because a baby tests positive for THC doesn't mean that there's an abusive situation. So it starts from the moment that they're born. Mom has
There's a protocol test positive for opiates that doesn't require any of this shit at all. And there actually might be some issues with that,
The doctor shared that also you can have a baby born who is addicted to nicotine and tobacco. That's not a mandatory reporting, just so you all know. And that can actually lead to health defects and problems. One of the things that these OB-GYN doctors and students and nurses were sharing is that the only thing they can really track to THC consumption while pregnant at this point is they said that you may see a earlier birth, so like preterm birth, or you may see a lower birth weight. Neither thing at a level that is life-threatening to either the parent, the child, and again, to your point, Tanya, these are families that are not showing any other red flags for any form of let's go check it out, right?
Right.
And if you have other kids in your family, they are now going through a CPS investigation, and they're probably older and able to comprehend what's happening. And it's discriminatory, but it's also a waste of our resources. As someone who lives in Ipsy City and grew up in the township and watched children who desperately needed real help from CPS and CPS not have time to deal with their case, and to as an adult find out that they're doing cannabis checks, but they're not actually helping. It's a waste of resources. So I was very shocked when we got reached out to by Michigan Medicine. We had an amazing meeting, and Rep agreed, and we're working with them on some legislation. They have a legal aid person that's working with me on it. But yeah, it was cool for me to hear health professionals say this is stupid and we shouldn't be doing this, because I feel like so much of mine and Zahada's conversations were always about the health industry hating on her for cannabis. And this time I had a bunch of health industry people saying, please help us out. This is stupid. And I really that was yes, let's do this to me. Right. So I would say for our office, those 3 are what I'm intending to fully champion. The intention is to at least get them all introduced this year. But Jaden's law is tricky, trying to build that across the aisle support, and the descheduling, the CPS one, we're building out the language right now. But I'm excited. And the thing that I will tell you is I had a couple policy people in the Hob kind of be like, oh, I don't know, we're having a hard time with cannabis because Stacy, Rep Coleman's bill, the 19 one, they didn't like it. And they're
Who,
like,
who
oh,
doesn't like it? Who didn't like it? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
a lot of random people in
Okay.
the hob. Yeah. And I looked at them and I was like, okay, but like, I'm literally being told by doctors not to do this and it's a waste of time. I don't think that's as controversial. And I was like, descheduling just makes sense. So I know there's support across the aisle. Let's go for it. But some of that hesitation, right, of like, ooh, are we going to rock too much? They tried to throw it at me, and I was like, no, you're just wrong. Like, I'm sorry, you're wrong. Like, these are issues that I know make sense and need to happen. And I'm literally being told by doctors, stop making me report this. I don't need to. So, like, the doctor told me. I'm not the doctor saying it, right? Like,
well,
so
look at
I am
what happened.
very hopeful.
Sorry, Leah. I was going to say, so look at what happened at, I can't remember who just recently got their license revoked. But at one of the facilities that least recently had their license revoked, there was an issue with the gummies that the employees were given. They were given like trade samples and they were marked CBD, but they were actually THC, and a worker's daughter took one and like had to go to the hospital, but then CPS was called. And this because of mislabeling by the cause of the employer that this happened. This had nothing to do with the parent. Nothing. Nothing. Give me a break. I mean, sure, it should.
Except for the parents' lack of understanding of the effects of cannabis.
Right. Didn't you know there's a bill that was introduced to make sure we tell you to lock it away from your kids?
Sure. I mean, there's that too. So my bad with that one.
No, I'm
well, you don't have to go to the hospital. You don't have to call it poison control. I mean, maybe, if you don't know that, you might freak out, but
right. Sure. Right. It wasn't, thinking that it wasn't THC, at least in that aspect, you know what I mean? But it shouldn't have got to that point for
No, I get it. I thought she knew that it was cannabis.
No. So is there a repercussion to the mislabeling or the company, Stacey? Like,
yes, this was on the company. So the company gave these gummies to the employees as trade samples, and they were marked as CBD. However, they were not CBD, and that
they mislabeled them, and that caused the problem down the road.
And that exactly. So I can't remember how it got or how it came to light that, hey, these are hot, like these are not CBD. But that was the main and most consequential result of that mislabeling by the company, because she didn't know it was THC. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it public yet which company it was?
Yeah. This was in something that was in the Safer
A
Michigan
lab of some sort. So it was one of the labs or something like that, right?
I don't remember if it was Skylab or not. There's been so many of these weird closures and actual punishment going on, but this was within the last couple weeks that this happened.
Skylab.
And that was the one of the biggest parts about the article what I had read in the report.
One person and it could have closed that whole place down. That's
right. It's like, it's like that. Those kind of instances are exactly one of the, a reason that you may not have thought of, but real life happened. And that's another reason that, CPS bill would be fantastic for.
Yeah. It should not be this mandatory reporting, because that's the part that makes me angry. It's mandatory. So like, these doctors could know the family's totally fine. The woman could have communicated that she's using it for nausea, right? And they are still they have to report it. And that's just like insane to me that you can't, as a doctor, make a decision whether this is actually a red flag or not.
Yeah, that part is ridiculous. But so an individual CPS bill is a good idea, but again, the descheduling solves that issue too, because now it's no longer a controlled substance.
In theory, but not really, because unless I remove that from their requirements, it's still their requirement. That's the problem we have, is like there are so many stupid little things on these books that Jamie's right. If it's descheduled, we should just be able to logically use that, but it don't work that way.
No, it doesn't work logically. We've talked about that even a couple times.
Yeah, no logic, guys. Don't look for where they're. I tell my organizers, do not drive yourself crazy looking for logic where there is no logic, because you will drive yourself crazy. I've had them try to reason with some very illogical people on doors, and I'm like, no, just walk away. It's not gonna.
The reason that marijuana is able to be put there as an issue of repercussion is because it's on the controlled substances list. So,
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that somebody would still push it, what's the repercussion? So it's no longer there. So it should die off, but it won't. There'll be people that want to keep. They have already. That happens. It's no question about it. Continue to push
Mhm.
in all those areas. It's true.
I mean, there are so many conversations happening in the legislature. I'm still hearing there's an office considering the ordinance bill that we've talked about. I know that there is still some of the conversation about the moratorium happening more on the Senate side now, I hear, than in the Hob. But like, it's funny to me because there's probably like 10 to 15 good cannabis somehow related bills. And there's still a large mentality of like, you guys legalized, you got medical, we're all good. And I'm like, no, like there's a lot of cleanup here, a lot of cleanup. Like it's really crazy.
We still don't
And
treat cannabis like it is. We still want to
Mhm.
get to the point where we're treating it as it is, not with all this extra shit.
Well, and I
Go
think
ahead.
even descheduling it, Jamie, could help us with Jaden's law because then it leaves some of that like fear that reps get about a controlled substance being inside a school, right?
Mhm.
If I can get it off the controlled substance list, then I've removed another one of their hesitations, is what I'll call it.
How many of those kids are getting hopped up on Adderall throughout the day there? That's what I want to know.
Thank you.
How many they go to the
I wanna
nurse's
know how
office?
many-
And,
Adderall, but not cannabis. That just doesn't even make any sense.
and half of America's on Adderall at this point.
I
Mhm.
am.
Mhm. But
You
like,
can't
as
even
much
get
as I
it.
can remove their hesitations or their, as I want to just call them, excuses, right? The better we're gonna be. And so, like, I guess that's sort of why it drives me. Like, there's like 15, 20 good conversations and bills going around. And even with Rep Coleman's, I know that Stacy and I want to expand more on workers' rights, but he was trying to expand involvement in the industry to 19 and 20-year-olds. And one of his big arguments was actually from some of the universities who are creating internship projects and programs, right? Well, they're like, freshmen and sophomores can't get into an internship in the industry because they're not allowed to. And there were reps that basically just, according to what I've heard from the reg committee meeting, were like, no, we don't want more kids in the industry. And then someone brought up the fact that you let 18-year-olds serve alcohol at a restaurant, right? And so it's so funny because they'll always say, like, treat it like alcohol. And then you give them an example of how they're not, and they try to pivot. They try to change. They're like, da, 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 da. And I'm like, no, really, like, that's your argument. Like, it's this, we're doing the same exact thing already. And then there was one rep that basically said, well, I would have liked that either if I'd been here to vote on that. And I was like, okay, I'm just never getting anywhere with you. But like, they say like, oh, we need to treat it like alcohol, and when that's useful to me, I will try to use the argument, and then they pivot, right? And so like, this did come from universities wanting to get their students into internship programs. Now, do I agree with Stacy? There's a whole hell of a lot more work to do before we want to necessarily influence a bunch of young kids. Totally. But the mentality of like, no, we're not going to give kids a leg up to get into the industry pissed me off because it's furthering rich white dudes always being in the industry. It just is.
Dude, I support and like I love the fact that we were able to like have this conversation. We're still like, you know, really talking about these really important things. But the fact of the matter is too that like even in like MLive, there was an MLive article where they're not talking about, you know, university students being able to utilize this. They're talking about filling the labor gap in the licensed cannabis industry right now because there are no like they have burned through the talent pool. They burned through the talent pool in a lot of these small areas. They paid too low of wages. They're doing too much with temp work. They're not offering enough. People are getting sick in cultivation facilities and in processing facilities. And at a certain point, like you're like, why would I do that? Like, why would I continue to do this?
And I want them to accept the industry because as we had a meeting, Stacy and I did with Rep Coleman and Rep Wilson, both guys who are very union oriented, right? And Rep Wilson worked in a Rawsonville Ford Motor Company factory for years. And I watched both of them get triggered thinking about like, we would never let an auto factory get to this level, right? And part of that is I think there's still some of that mentality of like, ooh, we don't want to deal too much with the cannabis world, right? Like, no, accept it. The industry's here, and now you have workers to engage with and protect. And I'm thankful that Rep Coleman and Rep Wilson will have those discussions. But like in some regards, they kind of are one-off reps that are really diving into that discussion. And some of the reps might not really understand how big and complex the industry is, right? All the little intricate jobs. I mean, you even got delivery drivers now, right? So like all the levels of jobs. And I think for Rep Coleman and Rep Wilson, after talking to them afterwards, kind of having that better perspective did make them think about, like, we'd freak out if 300 jobs in an auto industry closed. Why are we not all freaking out if something like that's happening in a grow and a processing insert thing here, right? I'm hopeful that the two of them having that knowledge and bringing it back to caucus and continuing the conversation kind of helps other reps start clicking. But it comes back to, I need more than 2 people up there having this conversation. And I'm super thankful for both who employs me and my good friend Rep Coleman, but I need more than 2 voices.
Right, for sure. And, that's, definitely going to be the next step in figuring out and trying to mitigate the issues that are going on, within the industry, as far as a lot of the other issues that we see. You don't need remediation if you have a proper environment. How do you have a proper environment? With proper training, hiring the right people that actually know what they're doing, being open to research, being open to, consulting from people that know what they're doing, and being open to that change and really looking at this as a legitimate industry. Just because there seems to be a dash, if not just a dash, but a large amount of chaos that is planned in all of this, especially within the businesses, right? Like, keep things a bit chaotic. Maybe not, but what's happening is that we're not getting the respect that we deserve because things look too crazy over there. Everything looks kind of nuts. Some people made money, but now we're seeing some people fail. I don't know. I don't really take it seriously. Combating those kind of things, I think is going to be a big deal. And when we do that, we're going to be helping workers. We're going to be helping the communities where these businesses reside in. I don't know if anybody's heard anything about what's going on with SkyMint. Has anybody heard about what's going on with SkyMint?
Not
the receivership they're in.
They're going to auction.
Receivership.
Going to auction. Yeah. I want to say it's like maybe this week. I haven't really looked at it, but yeah, they're going to auction. There's this, and now I don't know anything about how this works, but there's like something called a dark horse or a stalking horse bid, which is, it's the same money or the same company that they owe money to is like going to be bidding and already has some kind of base bid in.
Yep, so, they got to liquidate to get their assets back.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So there was
back with a good percentage.
So what is going to happen to all of these facilities? What is going to happen to all of these dispensaries? What's going to happen to all these people? Especially the towns where, now I'm not completely up to date on how many licenses and where all SkyMints are, but let's say they're in a town where maybe they have this sole license, or maybe there's only 2 licenses there and now they're closed. Now that opens up the door for somebody else, but there's going to be time between that place, shutting down and someplace else coming in and, everything that goes along with it. So there's a lot that's going to transpire as all of this unfolds, and it's going to, affect the communities, really.
And let's not forget, too, this whole process was bullshit right from the beginning, right? That shitbag Speaker of the House that was taking bribes right from the get-go. Like, this was fucked right from the get-go.
The base that was set by the bad medical law ended up.
We were set up for failure by the dude who was the main representative of our voice. Fucked us.
That's coming back to who are they actually representing, Anton?
Well, we know who he was representing, right? Themselves. But I mean, to occupy that position of prestige.
Are we going to hear about any more people getting caught in this this investigation? Seems like there was the excitement there a few weeks ago, and then
I haven't heard much.
Those types of things we don't hear about until they happen, because the U.S. attorney wants
usually
to
my
get
MERS
a press
update.
Conference. Yeah,
I get a MERS text message, and I'm like, "Oh, who did something now?"
That's good information. It is kind of an expensive media subscription, but
I will say it's one of the nice benefits of working in the Hob is being able to get MERS and gongware. It's been so helpful to me to disseminate information to people. Like, it really has. Yeah. One thing I will say about what the state did in the budget for cannabis, I don't know if you guys saw, they did invest an extra $1 million into the CRA Social Equity Fund.
I saw, but without any detail, though. To me, the next step is what is that?
I've emailed Derek, and I want to kind of, he's the policy person at CRA, which I'm sure all of you know. But for the people listening, that's who he is. And I want to follow up with him because I couldn't find good boilerplate. So like, I don't know if it's just like an extra influx to allow them to do like more licensing. I'm not really sure, but like, Rep Wilson, someone told him, and then he texted the speaker because I didn't know about it. And the speaker sent us a picture of where it is in the budget. And it is $1 million. That was actually recommended by the executive and the Senate. And so that was kind of cool. The HOP isn't even the one that dropped it. But without good boilerplate, the way I've read it is it's basically like an influx into their already existing fund. And so one of the conversations that I'd had previous this year with Derek was talking about reassessing some of the like fees and licensing things for social equity apps to lower it even more. So I also wonder if maybe that $1 million might go to that route to make it more affordable. So I've emailed to kind of set up some language about it, but it was in some ways nice to see leadership at least recognizing social equity is worth investing in, I guess.
That's a good move, but you always get a little, as you know, Anton finds out and you hear about, hey, money's going to be spent on this thing. This is awesome. And he gets going. It's, you know, the details are still very important. So.
And these are people who are experts at bullshit. And some, you know,
absolutely.
they know how to hide a buck and pinch a penny and slide it under this little blurb of the budget that nobody's looking at, and that is the problem.
DEI and all that stuff is hot right now. It's so hot right now.
No.
Did you say DEI?
Yeah, like diversity,
like
equity,
diversity,
and like and you know, just and social equity and stuff. It's hot right now. So if you are
every single budget that had the term DEI in it, every single budget, a Republican introduced an amendment to remove all DEI language from everything. Every single time that we showed up, Singh, I think might have been the one, had a amendment to remove all the DEI references every single time. And I was like, really? You like took time to submit all these amendments to remove that? Like, why do you hate that so much?
See, seeing it
Well,
happen.
I'm glad they're not in power right now. That's the kind of shit that they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like over in Connecticut, there is a lot of not even just controversy. There's a lot of shit that happened with their social equity program where it was pretty much just this like false narrative. They used this fund and they declared these certain areas, much like in Michigan, right? If you live in a certain area, you can qualify for social equity, right?
The same issue. There was just limited language in the law, and then what it means after that by those implementing it is what actually really happens.
Right. Very vague. So they let you just walk in like Zozo.
So, you know, rich white people already not having an issue with money are getting social equity funds in these certain areas because for whatever reason, now I'm not saying West Bloomfield is a part, I'm just as an example, let's say Bloomfield Hills, you know, was a social equity area. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to, you know, any of us here probably. But, you know, nobody's really paying attention to where those things are located and where that money is coming from. However, Connecticut is a lot smaller and it was a lot easier for, you know, some people that were like, this doesn't seem right, to really kind of hone in and find out, oh, look at these people getting social equity that have no business getting anything from social equity. How are you? What do you need from equity? Where do you come from? It doesn't even make sense.
It's gross. It's really gross. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. So seeing $1 million thrown at social equity just immediately sets off an alarm. It's a little triggering.
Like I said, I think they're thinking of it two ways, and I didn't see any boiler language to tell me exactly how you're intending on using
it. They only gave them 50 million last time, or excuse me, 50,000. I think it was almost like a slap in the face. So, like, this is probably the work that people have been working hard on in social equity. I would suppose, you know, Mitzi Ruddock or Najanava. I know that there's a conversation they've had with getting more funding. It's there's not even enough there for one business to like get in.
Right. And so that's what I'm wondering. Are they just trying to influx the fund? Is it going to be like, so I want some clarity on it, but like, I do agree it's not negotiable that we need to invest more in social equity. Like my data is outdated by now, but like, I believe we're still under like 5% of minority women that own something. And now
Well,
it gets better if you just look at women, but like it's a really big problem that minority women can't get into the industry as easily, and we know that that's economic.
Yep. Thanks.
So one of these times when the act is suggested to be open to make a change, and we're trying to make some improvements, allocating regular funds in the same way it goes to roads and education and back to the communities to add on, some teeth and some consistent funding to some other things would be a good idea. Social equity would be a very popular one to do that with, I think.
I think helpful too, because you're going to get more people that are really Michiganders with roots here who really want to do this, and less of the people who came to Michigan to have fun in the cannabis world. But like, we need to really support the people who've been here forever, who probably have those ideas drawn up on a dry erase board, like me and Zahara used to do about our lounge that we wanted someday, that it was a dream because we were never going to get there because of the finances, right? Because of the fees, because of the license. I know there are other Michiganders right here, and I want to invest our industry in those Michiganders.
That's right. Our residents have to represent one another 100%. That needs to be pressed super hard in the days that we live in. Your state will protect you more.
Well, you started saying something, Anton, before.
What was I going to say? One of our consumer connection meetings with CRA, the $1 million was brought up. I don't remember. I think Derek spoke about it. I don't remember what was said, but it was brought up and they had mentioned it, and whatever was said didn't set off any alarm bells or anything. So, I mean, I know Derek will speak to you further about that. But they did bring it up and they were happy about it. Like I said, $1 million really, I mean, I don't know how much that's really going to do, but, I mean, they're not going to turn that money down. So hopefully they do something constructive with it, which I'm sure.
Where does it come from?
That I don't know.
I think it was restricted funds. 2 seconds. I have the budget. I'll let you know.
Because it should not be coming from what was raised under the MRTMA, because that's very specifically allocated to things.
That's
unless it gets justified by that it is for the social equity program, which is a component of the law, which is something that is a directive to have to carry out by the department for the law. So they need funds to do what they are directed to do, so they could then appropriate funds for that. It probably is MRTMA funds, and that's maybe the thinking. I don't know.
This is the budget, just so you all know.
We didn't like the idea that they were about ready to, at one point in some language last session, allow police to have a little bit more reach into funds that were ever intended. And there is still language, I think.
Okay, the way it is written. Oh, it's not restricted. It's from general funds.
Really?
So the Senate included the $1 million general fund. One time to support CRA. That's how it was proposed, was from general fund. But the conference moved it into state restricted funding for a one-time $1 million from the restricted fund.
Okay. Well, good. That's actually more proper. It's not, you don't have to rationalize it.
It does clarify marijuana regulation fund adult use for this purpose. So it is for the rec industry. Yeah.
Yep.
But conference put it into restricted. The Senate recommended it from the general fund originally, but it is now from the restricted fund. And the only other good budget thing that we all could probably debate on too is the state creating its own laboratory, which they gave it
$4 million or something like that.
They gave it $4.4 million.
Yeah.
Yep, 4.4 million with authorization for 5 more employees. We'll see how that goes.
I don't like there's something needs to be done to have the third party lab. Having our own still.
The intention is to utilize it for any CRA investigations, ongoing proficiency testing, industry audits, and development and optimization of testing methods.
Okay, I have something going here. You continue to keep on throwing it in here. So if they're going to build a laboratory, right? They're going to test. So obviously you don't have to have a third party testing, whatever. So that's obviously going to set a standard of what is, conducive and what is not, obviously.
So I'm kind of interested to see what those numbers are going to be like based on the fact, and I'll continue to say it, how many people live in homes ran by slumlords? How many houses have mold in them? And how many people have lived in this contaminant? I know so many people in Flint who lived in these houses and their children aren't growing in the right rate. You know, it's like this is not only just the state law, it's federal. There's no state regulation on mold. And if you want to prove it, you have to spend a lot of money and go through a lot of trouble to be able to do so. And it allows these landlords to be just lazy, but it also comes down to most of the people that suffer from this situation are people from low income homes, which then turns around and means that most of these people are going to be on Medicaid or Medicare, and it still comes out of our pockets no matter what. So why and who makes the decision on what is that mold amount going to be, and why does it only matter over here without this argument over here? And I feel like that's where we should start too when it comes to these conversations, because it is a huge problem. And if it's such a big deal over here, that means the money interest, and we'll be able to prove that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Sorry about the rant, but it is something to think about every single time somebody brings up this topic.
In reference to the lab, now I've sat in meetings, the consumer connection groups and stuff with CRA, and when it was explained, I am a supporter of the lab in the way it was explained to me by Director Hanna. And but one of the issues I expressed concern over, and I guess it was just more of an opinion, was that I don't want to see the lab being used as an overflow for MSP or the feds to test evidence. That was one of my things. That you shouldn't be, you are the state regulator. You are there to test and ensure the quality and accuracy of our testing results. Do not become the patsy of the feds, because I know I did it, right? I know the MSP lab is who we would go to because the Fed lab was backed up. So we'd go to the MSP lab, and then the MSP lab would be backed up, and they'd look to overflow to somebody else as well. So now once you get into testing evidence, it was now I think there's a conflict there. And I don't, when the explanation I got, I didn't think there was any issue with it. It didn't sound like that was the case, but that was certainly worth mentioning, that I could see that being an issue if it wasn't thought about. You know, I get CRA investigations being needed in the testing, and I get all that. But once MSP starts knocking on your door and you're taking evidence and testing it, you know, for prosecutorial purposes, that would be an issue for me.
I agree.
And they didn't, they didn't
confirm.
They didn't say they were going to do that. That was one of my concerns as far as that.
But also to Jamie's point about language, I don't know if they point blank wrote in they're not allowed to do it, right? So interpretation room possibly.
I mean, maybe that's something that I don't know. Yeah,
I'll add it to my conversation with Derek. See?
Yeah. And like I said, it did not sound like that's what they were looking to do, but I know that's how it works. When you see a lab and they can test and they can certify things for a case, and you're trying to get you're trying to close cases and prosecute folks. Now you're looking for anybody who'll take your case there, and then that would just be an issue, especially at the federal level. I know that's how they operate, so I don't think it's going to be a thing, but worth noting, right?
Leah, do you know what the status is of the tribal business bill to allow the tribal businesses to buy into metric or
not off the top of my head? No, I do not know where it is right now.
To take a look at what the current language is. After everything we went through, the thing came back out again with language to, specifying giving money to the police. There was a version I read about it that was toned down from the language that was really horrible last session. I don't see why it's there. It's not necessary to be there.
Well, and my thing is, you're going to keep giving this task force money. How about you actually train them to be able to identify plants and test them properly?
So
it doesn't say that it's going to fund the task force. The last language it could have been used for that, but
okay. So the new one is okay.
The new one doesn't go that far, but I guess I would like to read it to feel better about that. It seems like it was a lot more specific for things that the department needs to do to run the department, but it already can do that. So to include it and specify it, I don't understand the point. The last time they would have gained the ability to use money more widely with police if they wanted to. So I did understand that point from their perspective. They say that wasn't their intention, but they would have been able to by just a plain reading of the language. But anyway, that's something to look out for. We kind of talked about similar issues with that type of a thing already today a few times. And that's another one of the bills that seems to have support if something's going to pass. The idea of including the tribal businesses, which it doesn't make them have to do their model as the state's model either. They can still do more broad and liberal approaches as they see fit, which I really appreciate because that might be something that influences us to become less restrictive and less prohibitive in our own system here too.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Lots of work to still do, but as long as government's willing to have a conversation and try and sort through some of these things, we should be in good shape. But the problem is it's just the divisive, again, bullshit that we go through to get the simplest of things passed, no matter what it is, and having to constantly monitor government. As people like us on this panel here, I shouldn't have to worry about and think about what government is doing to the extent that I am, because I'm paying them to do the job, right? I'm not getting a return on my investment here, people, and they don't look at it that way because it's government. My turn. Stay out of my life, government. I don't want you involved. I don't want you. Don't worry about what I put into my body. It's not your concern, but that's government. I don't know.
Maybe someday we will not say that's government, but yes, currently that's government.
That is government. Rome was 800 years. They made it 800 years in Rome. We're at what, 300? I don't know. Or what
We're
are we
not
at
quite
here?
at that.
Our republic was
290
tested.
What are we at?
Everyone was pushed. I mean, we just had a coup. People don't even. A lot of people don't even catch that yet. I mean, we really had.
I think there are so many crazy things happening all the time that we can't help but accept that we have become a little numb because what we know is not supposed to be normal occurs so often now that it's not as oh my God, right? And people just kind of kept going. But you're right. We had a literal coup in the US in the middle of the 2020s. And are we really there?
Yep.
Yeah.
There. And it's scarier than it's ever been.
Well, because half the people don't see it as a coup. They see it as a peaceful protest. Just good God-fearing Americans.
You can't, in any sane perspective, view that as a peaceful protest, especially
but
all
the
videos been released. I know that people do. I get it. I'm just saying if you were, and then again, here you go, logic and
logic and truth are out the door.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. This is
my experience in North Carolina was a very sobering reminder that not everybody thinks like us here on this call, and not everybody thinks that January 6th was a problem.
I get it. And Trump has a lot of support right now. I mean, he's an
and that's
absurdity.
a lot
By any objective measure, he's an absurdity. But that's the problem. People aren't being objective. They're blind loyalists, and sometimes, as Anton said, very good people, very smart people, very nice people. In some cases, it's weird how some things politically, maybe in other areas of people's lives, they don't apply their same ability to logically vet information or something like that. Just some issues are just I'm just buying this and that's it.
One of the things that I did, for a while, I was actually, when I was in Boston, I was attached to the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. I worked domestic terrorism cases. That was my thing, right? And what I learned is you cannot defeat ideology. If somebody believes something, they really believe that shit, you're not changing their mind. It doesn't matter what facts. It doesn't matter how you, and that is the scary part of this whole thing is you cannot defeat ideology, especially when it's deeply ingrained in a way and attached to patriotism, this is for your country. And when people believe that, and then they mix kind of extreme ideologies into that, now the things get blurred and And that's, I mean, we've seen that even overseas, you know, with different terrorist organizations and whatnot. Once you breed somebody to believe something, and they really, really do, there's no turning back. It's very hard to defeat that. And yeah, I don't know what the answer is there.
We've been talking a lot about culture change because of that. Like, we realize there's a lot of set in the way. And like, I tell a lot of my younger organizers, all of this is a marathon, not a sprint, because you're fighting for a societal and a cultural change. Like you have, and that's not something that happens overnight, because you do have so many people rooted in, this is the way it's been, this is what I believe. Like, you can't undo that overnight. And
try to get people to do different things. Yeah. To change behaviors and stuff after it's been going on
Yeah.
for so long. Not
Well,
not
and
easy,
my partner also made me think of it differently lately. He said that, you know, I was really frustrated about wanting to change a system and make it more efficient. And he told me, he said that if they have to admit that they need to change it, it means that they were doing something wrong. And they don't want to admit that they were wrong, because they can't possibly imagine just growing and efficiency and changing, because they think that you're saying they're wrong. And like, it's weird, but I've been trying to encourage the younger kids, like, that it's a marathon, not a sprint. But like, you also see them kind of look back at you like, I don't want to have the same conversation for 20 years. And I'm like, I don't want to have it for 10. But
start getting more critical thinking and logic in grade schools, and just don't put your critical thinking cap on for science class. Just always kind of like think about shit like that, you know, and let's just get used to that. But whatever, that's a 20-year plan too, I guess.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's always a 20, 30, 40 year plan. Which is hard, because like, we're talking about stuff that's affecting like literally all aspects of people's life constantly, and you don't feel like you have 20, 30, 40 years. But we've got an archaic system that moves slow AF, and it was meant to do that. And it's going to take a long time to undo all of that.
I agree. You know, we are kind of getting toward the end. I'm extremely happy that so many people are here talking about these issues, getting good information out to people with me. As we are kind of winding down, you know, Leah, you're rolling there a little bit. Is there anything else you want to make sure you get in? I'd like to have, if you don't mind, like check in periodically, get good legislative updates from.
Oh, absolutely. I will always
that.
enjoy being with this group of people on Jazz Cabbage.
Awesome.
And I'm a nerd about policy and legislation, if you can't tell. So, I mean, I would really say, like, anyone who's watching, or any of you guys, it's really Rep Wilson's office, and I would say Rep Coleman, that are like captaining a lot of what we view as good cannabis work. And I would just encourage you to stay in touch with those two offices. Again, a lot of stuff hasn't been introduced, but I will communicate with all of you as soon as all those pieces have House bills. And I'll make sure that, Jamie, we can connect so I can come on here and update everyone on the bill numbers too. But I would really just say, like, there's a lot of reps who want to do something in this world, but they need us in the rooms educating them. Like, they need to hear from our experience and our stories and our patients and our networks. And I guess, you know, as like Latricia and Amy and Jaden alluded to, it can be fun to come up there, right? So like, don't be afraid to come talk to them. And they need to hear us.
It definitely gets you over your fear of speaking. But they're human beings. A lot of them don't know that. It's like Leah was saying, like, you go somewhere else and there's not a lot of people like us that think or want to think. They believe, and that is it. And then that's just the structure by which they live in. And there's quite a few people in office that are like that. So
many other industrialized nations have better educational systems for their kids than we do too.
Like Anton was saying, ideology is harder work. They work harder. They work way harder to be where they're at right now. And we have all dropped the ball for such a long time that they're ahead. So now it's time to be strategic and make sure you make the right relationships with people and communicate the right information. So I'll try to get Representative, oh my gosh, can't remember his name anymore. The guy in my district, Dave Martin.
Martin, yeah.
I'll talk to him about workers' rights and stuff like that. I think I'll be more interested in that.
That would be huge. That's where I think we really can get some across the aisle too.
Right. Well, I mean, this is a big community full of manufacturer workers for years and years and years and years. So I know that's something that he supports, so we can just get underneath his belt. Maybe Stacy and I can go up and talk to him, and then communicate about other bills at the same time. Find his interest. Maybe Anton can come up someday too, because he's a huge advocate for veterans. Yep.
I love arguing with people.
Maybe it's fun.
Information to people. Hey, Tanya, thanks for joining us today also, and bringing out Anna. And I know Rick must have enjoyed that a lot.
He was just giggling so hard in the other room. That's why I was
being a part of it. Is there anything you want to make sure you get in before we wrap it up?
Nope. We've been working hard. All of us are taking a class, like we said, from Can I Consult You through Candication with Maria Lappin. We're doing a lot of the real basic information, but they're touching on some pretty key points that are necessary to make sure they're tuned up, to make sure the education they're putting out there is correct. It's really neat. It's just a lot of advocates. People are really empowered by the movement. They want to know more, know better. And I'm looking forward to the next 3 days to find out what the next chapters of her information is going to be.
Right. Stacy, thanks for jumping on with us and your attention to the specifically, labor issues. You have a lot of support with a lot of other people who care about this, and it's nice to be updated on the stuff that's going on here, and it needs some attention. So thanks for bringing that and being part of that discussion and everything. Is there anything you want to get in before we wrap it up?
No, appreciate that, and appreciate all you guys. It was really good to see Rick today too. That was intense. But from what Trish said, I'm actually getting like the full blown treatment right now over at Maria, her place over here with Can I Consult You, because I am not feeling well, and I went to the ER and they told me we don't see anything, and they gave me some Pepsid AC and sent me home, and it turns out I have something a lot bigger than that. So Maria is pretty much healing me. I'm staying here at her house, and she's taking care of me and juicing and doing all the thing, and we're titrating cannabis and CBD, and it's even though like I know so much about the plant, there's just this whole other level that I personally didn't have that I'm learning a ton. So
nice.
Yeah. So thank you to Maria.
I'm sorry you have to have a condition by way of, kind of figuring some of these things out, but I'm glad that you have something to work with there.
It's always some bullshit that brings us to the next level, though, at the end of the day, right? Like it creates that fire, it's just a little bit more fiery than I'd like. But no, thanks for everything, guys. It was good seeing everybody, and can't wait for the next episode next Tuesday.
Right on. Anton, and thanks again to Anton. I know you're out a little bit. Thanks for coming back and hanging out with us.
Of course. I guess at the end of the day, we talk about government, we talk about policy, we talk about all these things. And the one thing they all have in common is that they affect people, and they affect the people in our community. So I will just say, one of our favorite people, Rick, if you're still listening, brother, we miss you, and we love you, and we support you, and, keep up the good fight, brother. So that's all I got.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming on. I definitely appreciate Rick's visit for a minute. And that was really, really cool. I'm glad that people got a little bit more of an update. So just a slow, take it step at a time scenario. And that's where we are. I really, really miss him. I miss him on this show. I miss him at large. Hopefully I'm going to see him soon. And normally he would wrap us up. It makes me miss him even more right now. But we'll keep on getting good information to people. And we'll keep on sending Rick our prayers and positive vibes and giving him more reason to help get through this extremely rough time. And hopefully we can get back to a regular show at some point. Let it be whatever time from now. Let's just get back to a regular show someday. I appreciate it, everybody. We'll be back again next week.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Bye, guys.